Imagine running multiple seven-figure businesses without feeling stressed and while having plenty of time for your family life. It might sound like a dream, but today's guest is doing just that, largely through her ability to delegate and find great people to work with. Stephanie Wigner has grown 3 companies to 7+ figures in the last 5 years without sacrificing her time, including 2 chiropractic clinics. And she now supports other chiropractors and wellness experts to do the same through her online platform, The Wealthy Practitioner. I'm Joel Oliver, and this is Profits Through Podcasting. Stephanie, welcome in.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Let's start with just to set everything up, set the stage here so we know about you and what you're up to. Let's have a brief history of your business, The Wealthy Practitioner. When and why did you start that business?
Yeah, so it really kicked off at the beginning of 2023, so a little over 2 years ago. I had been doing some one-to-one coaching on the side, and I wasn't sure how much I wanted to dive into it. I have other businesses. I have chiropractic offices on the East Coast. And I had just had a 1-year-old. So he turned 1 at the end of 2022 and we were on a trip in Hawaii. And I just remember telling my husband, I really think that I want to just create an entire company around coaching. Like I'm feeling called. And on that exact trip, I got like 3 DMs for people who wanted to coach with me. And I was like, okay, it's a sign. Like I have to do this. I have to take this seriously and really start building a company and creating offers that I could take multiple people through, because being a chiropractor and a practitioner inside of the office, your time is tied to how many people you can see. And so when I started in coaching, it was the same thing. It was like all these back-to-back meetings of one-to-one coaching. And while it was great and I loved it and it was getting me excited, it wasn't really scalable in a sense of like, I really didn't start another company to just even have the same amount of time or less time than I had before. And so I really had to think about, okay, what is the impact that I want to create? How do I want to do that? And how am I going to deliver in a way that people still get results? Because that's like the number one important thing to me, but also that is impactful and powerful and allows me to have the space to give them the best. If I'm not on back-to-back calls, I can really think and create the best kind of content and coaching platforms, programs for them.
Okay, so that was around 2023. You mentioned a bit about your other businesses. So let's just get the picture on that as well. It was 2016, you started your first chiropractic clinic. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. So my husband and I are both chiropractors. We met at chiropractic school in the Midwest. We moved out to the East Coast and we both had positions working for other companies. And after about 9 months of working for somebody else, I was like, I kind of want to do this on my own. And so I went out and opened the first office. And then not even 12 months later, I opened a second location just because it was close to like a midwife clinic and I wanted to be close to them. That's the population that we serve, is pediatrics, prenatals, that sort of thing. And so I went from essentially no businesses to 2 locations inside of 12 months. And then shortly after that, my husband went to open an office and then we opened another one in 2022. So collectively, we have 4 offices.
Okay. And I definitely want to learn more about that and how you're making all that work, because I know a lot of people are already thinking, how are you doing all of that? So we'll get into that. So, okay, that's good. That's a timeline. And now you mentioned 2023 for The Wealthy Practitioner. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that's around when you started the podcast as well. Did you start those at the exact same time?
No. So I started my mastermind in February and I really started the podcast because I was like, how can I give free coaching away? Essentially, how can I just help people see if they'll listen, because you don't know when you're starting a podcast, like, is anybody going to listen to this or not? But I had one of our mutual friends that was like, yeah, you should really start a podcast. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. And so that launched in June of 2023.
Okay. And you're just now hitting 100 episodes recently. So that's good. You've been doing it consistently and we'll dig in. Yeah, exactly. That's what you need to do. So that's setting a great example, and we'll get into that more. So let's back up here now for The Wealthy Practitioner in the business. You mentioned a little bit about it, but let's really hear, who is your ideal client for that business? What specifically are you offering these days and how you deliver it?
Yeah, great questions. So any kind of practitioner is going to be an ideal client, but we have certain programs. So like for chiropractors specifically, we have a 90-day sprint where we dive into their business. We help them with their marketing, their finances, their pricing, their structure, their team, their capacity to free up their time as CEO and be able to remove themselves from seeing patients 6 days a week. And obviously, that's what I had to do in order to go and start other businesses and be able to have multiple offices. And now the coaching and podcast and all that, I had to figure out a way to do that within my own clinic. And so for some people, they want to work and see patients only 3 days a week. Some are like, hey, I want to be completely removed. So whatever their goals are, we take them through that process during 90-day sprint. And then we also have a mastermind that's ongoing that has lots of perks to it. We do in-person meetups. We have a whole content library on everything from mindset to CEO energy to building wealth to using AI and tech to speed up the process in your business. It's really a more all-encompassing business program. And then I also just released this year coaching container called Expanders that is really for anybody, whether you're a coach, a consultant, a practitioner, whatever it is. It's just my highest level, close-knit proximity to me. So we have in-person luxury retreats. We have an online community. It's really, really fun. And that's really, for me, been able to allow me to branch outside of just practitioners. Now, I have like a health coach in there. I have a marketing coach in there and really help them build their coaching business. And so that's been super exciting for me as a whole new thing. And they're getting amazing results. And so that's the beautiful thing, I think, about building something online. Like once you get good at one thing, there's no cap. You're like, okay, now I can teach this other thing, right? Especially if you have real life experience. I know you help people with podcasting. It's like you have real life experience doing that. They should go to somebody who's really good at that,
Mm-hmm.
And so through the different offerings inside of the Wealthy Practitioner, it's been fun to help people at different stages of their entrepreneurial journey.
It's great. Yeah. So if it's not already becoming obvious, anyone who struggles with delegating should really start paying attention because, like you said, you and your husband were running multiple clinics and then you've got this online business with all of these different programs. And I definitely want to get into the delegating side. But first, to get an idea with those clinics and the Wealthy Practitioner and everything you've got going on these days, how is your personal attention divided right now across the businesses? Like, what are you mainly doing here? Are you focusing on one business or how does that look from, say, a high level view?
Great question. So a lot of my time is spent on the Wealthy Practitioner. It's just where I'm feeling called right now. We're on a crazy growth trajectory. So I'm really just trying to lean into that. For my office, I'm there anywhere from like 6 to 10 hours a month. And so I pop in a couple of times a month just to check on things, really be CEO, mentor team, pour into them, make sure things are operating well. Obviously, like if things come up throughout the week, they'll message me, but I have really good people in place to lead patient care, to lead the operational side. And so I get to be removed from that quite a bit. And then same thing in our other 2 clinics. My husband pops in every Tuesday for a few hours. And outside of that, we're really just in CEO mode, making sure that everything's operating the way that it should.
Hey, it's Joel jumping in for 15 seconds to say, if you are ready to take your podcast to the next level and save time so you can focus on your business while generating more leads and revenue through podcasting, book your podcast vitality call with me today at eastcoaststudio.com. You'll find the link in the show notes. Now back to the episode. Before we get a little more into the delegation side, can you tell us a little bit about the team that you've got for the Wealthy Practitioner? I think I've spoken to some of your team members now more than you, which I really admire.
Yeah.
Because I personally have had some challenges, and I think probably any entrepreneur has, finding the right people to put in business roles like that. So when I talk to people who are so competent and they've got everything under control, I just think, wow, like where did Stephanie find these people? Yeah. So before we talk about that, just give us a rough idea of what does that team actually look like? Like who are the people there? How big is it? That sort of thing.
Yeah. So when I first started hiring for the Wealthy Practitioner, it was like I just hired an EA, an executive assistant. I was like, I need somebody answering all these emails, like uploading things to our client platform, navigating just like a lot of admin. And what I realized is that was super helpful. It was super helpful to get some of that stuff off my plate so that I could grow. But I realized more than that, what I needed was like an operational manager so that I could stay in my visionary role. I love to create new things. I love to get downloads and be able to come and be like, okay, this is what you guys need to do to our clients. Like I'm constantly thinking about them and how to improve their businesses. And so I need space to be able to do that. I can't be bogged down with like my calendar, right? Somebody else has to be in charge of that. And so currently on my team, so I started with an EA. Then the EA that I had was with me for about a year. And then I hired a new EA and she's super talented. That's probably who you've been speaking with. She has been with me about a year as well, but we promoted her to operational manager just because she's so good at the operations. And she's really freed up my time in that way. So I always had an EA and a VA for like 10 hours a week. And then more recently, we've hired on another full-time like marketing assistant, admin, coordinator sort of thing to really help so I can now free up Brandy because Brandy, my operational manager, has too many things on her plate. So we need to backfill her. And really, we've just grown small. We operate with a pretty small team. I will outsource to contractors. Like currently we have a Go High Level specialist as a contractor, just because Go High Level is a beast all in itself. And we're like, okay, let's delegate most of our sales page funnels, automations to somebody who's only working on that. And so the way that I like to grow is really to scale up or scale down these contractors based on the needs of the business. And so when I was first getting started and I had no idea how to build a business, like I'm a chiropractor, I can help you with your body, I can help you heal. Building online was such a foreign language to me, right? And so it's why when I went to start a podcast, I was like, I want somebody who's good at podcasting. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I can get on the mic and record, but other than that, I want to be hands off. Same thing when it went to starting a website. It was like, I could probably spend all my time building a website and these sales pages, but let me just find a contractor that I can pay for this project. And then as time went on, it was like, okay, we have more of a regular need for this. Let's just put them on a retainer.
Right. That sounds amazing. Tell us a bit more about how you found these people or how you screen, whether it is a person that works closely with you or a contractor. How do you determine that this is going to be someone who's a good fit?
So anybody who is going to be in the business on a daily basis, I screen a lot harder. A couple days a week, my 2 team members come into my house. We work together in person. I love the energy of being in person. I know everybody wants to have people overseas and everybody wants to have, like, you can work anywhere. That doesn't really fly with me because I guess it's just my energy profile and like the way that I operate. I thrive off being in person and that energetic match. And so twice a week, my operational manager, my marketing assistant come in person. We record, we download, we create new programs, events, things like that. But for both of them, I just posted on Indeed or LinkedIn. And I was like, okay, here's what I'm looking for. Here's all the tasks that I no longer want to do. Here's the characteristic traits I'm looking for. And then it's just like through any other interview process. I knew because I wanted those 2 in person that it was going to have to be somebody local. And then for like our contractors, it's really just like, show me your expertise. Show me what you're good at. Let me see if it aligns with my needs. And coming up, marketing and sales is a big aspect of our business just because we're trying to get leads in. And so that's where I'm really delegating a lot inside of right now. And so we're even considering bringing on like a fractional CMO, chief marketing officer, to really just spearhead the marketing department. Because right now it's falling a lot on me as well. And so now that's who we're currently interviewing as well. But for contractors, it's like, hey, what is your expertise and does it align with the business needs right now?
Okay. It's interesting with online, we have access to virtually anybody in the world, as you kind of mentioned. So that's arguably a good thing. But then I think as well, when you kind of narrow it and say, I need someone local, that kind of makes the search easier in a way, because you just know, I don't have to think about the rest of the world. It needs to be someone in my city.
But I will say, like, working in person with somebody on your team who's like my number 2, my integrator, right? Like, she knows every aspect of the business. She has to, because that's just what's required of her position. And to have somebody that close in it, to me, I can't imagine only meeting them on Zoom. Like, I want to know about her. I want to know about her family. I want to know about her goals outside of her job. You know, I want to know about like where she's going so that I can help her reach all of those goals too. And I feel like that's really hard to do with just a virtual relationship. That in person is where that like connection and trust and that sort of thing gets built up. And so I think for a lot of us who are wanting to build something epic and amazing, you should really consider at least your number 2, your integrator, being in person with you.
Mm-hmm. Something I'm curious about as well that you mentioned was the hours, because this is a challenge that I've personally faced, I think some other people as well, is finding quality help who can work with you as you scale in, say, a limited number of hours starting out. So you mentioned 10 hours a week. I'm not sure if that's still the case, but...
No, that was for a VA. So that was for a virtual assistant just doing little admin things. My executive assistant has always been 40 hours a week.
Okay, good. That makes more sense. Because finding quality people and finding that balance where they can be dedicated enough to you, it's a bit of a challenge, I think.
Yeah, executive assistants, I feel like do best just with full-time, because if you do want somebody who's actual quality, they're looking for a career, you know?
Yeah, if they're only doing 10 hours a week for you, they've got to be doing some other work, and then you don't have full access to them. So, okay, that's very insightful. I like that answers my questions about how are you finding these great people. Let's get into a bit more about the actual business, some marketing. So tell us about, as you said, it's a huge part of what you're working on now, marketing, sales. Tell us a bit about your marketing funnel. Like, what is your biggest source of leads these days? What are the steps that people need to take to kind of enter your world?
Yeah, so we have really, I would say in the last 12 to 18 months, really honed in on our marketing and what's working. And obviously lead generation is huge for any business. And so really we're getting leads through the podcast, through social media, Instagram primarily, through Facebook groups, because there's practitioner-specific Facebook groups out there. And so people are tagging us like, oh, you got to check out the Wealthy Practitioner. I did this program. They're amazing. People, referrals are telling their friends and families about us. And I would say that those are the main things. And then we recently just started doing paid ads probably in the last quarter. And so that has been helpful just to get people into our ecosystem. And so in order to convert them from a lead to a client, I used to do sales calls, and similar to one-to-one coaching, I would have a day full of sales calls and they weren't lighting me up. They weren't getting me excited. I would spend 30 minutes trying to convince somebody why I was the best thing for them and how this program is life-changing. And then they would still say no. And I'm like, I just wasted 30 minutes of my time. So I really don't do sales calls anymore either. If there's somebody who's on the fence, I will delegate it to a team member. So I have other coaches inside of my organization as well. One of them is like, hey, I'll do any sales calls if they absolutely need it. And so I delegate those to her. But outside of that, we're really converting people through social media using mini chat like, hey, comment, do you want this low ticket product that we're testing? Do you want this free lead magnet? Do you want the details? We're opening up enrollment for our signature program. And then we'll do free master classes as well and then convert on the back of those. And so we really kind of have diversified where our leads are coming from. And that has made a world of difference instead of just being reliant on one lead source.
That's interesting that you said you only recently started paid ads. So up until then, it was all, say, organic or these other methods.
Yeah.
Wow. And the Facebook groups you mentioned, I think I got this right. It sounded like that's mostly other people posting, recommending you, right? Not working for you or anything. Are you doing any of your own outreach in those groups?
Not really. I will go in there and provide value. You know, if somebody's asking a business question, I will go in there and provide value, especially in like the chiropractic specific Facebook pages, just to really help and support. But I'm not going in there and being like, hey, I'm Dr. Steph, the Wealthy Practitioner. You should come check us out. I really don't do that.
Right. And that's you yourself are in those, doing those posts. Okay. What do you know about the podcast? You said that you are getting leads through that. How do you know that those people are coming through the podcast? What are you hearing from people who come?
So for our higher ticket programs, we have an application process. And so when we ask, like, how did you hear about us? A lot of them will either say Facebook group, podcast, Instagram.
How long did you feel, if you can even remember, when you started the podcast, how long did it take before you felt like there's some momentum here? There's actually people listening. It's helping my business. Was there any period of time where you felt like no one's listening?
I never felt like no one was listening because I always had influence. Like even before I had the podcast, people were curious about the way that I thought, the way that I viewed business, the way that I was leading my life. So when the podcast came, it was kind of a natural progression. I think people sometimes release podcasts when they don't have any influence and maybe they're trying to gather influence, which is totally fine because it works as that. I would just be trying to do both at the same time. You know, even if it's influence to 300 people on Instagram, like that's still amazing. But I think sometimes, and I don't know if this is your experience too, Joel, but people just expect the podcast to do all of it. And it's not really how it works. It should be an asset to your whole marketing ecosystem.
Yeah, it's definitely a tool. It can have various uses, and depending on where you are in your journey, that can look different. Okay, so what I'm getting here is, you had some sort of influence already, like you said, because you didn't even need to run paid ads until a lot later. You started the podcast and you immediately had some people paying attention. So what was your social following like before that, if you know, and how did you get it to where it was? How did you get that influence?
I would say before the podcast, I probably had 11,000 followers, maybe. I always just have been really active on social. I actually really like social media. I like being connected to people as a person. And so that's one of the easiest ways to connect with people is through social media. So it never really felt like a job to me, or it never felt hard. You know, I like learning the new things that are working and that are happening and testing new things. And so I really just showed up there consistently for years before I even had anything to sell.
Okay. I like that. It just happened, because we obsess so much these days over what do I do? What kind of content do I need to put out there? And I like just hearing, I just did what I thought was fun and looked at some things and it just grew.
And I feel like that's everything with business. And I teach my clients this too. Like the more authentic you are, the more you show up consistently, like it's the laws of the universe. You are going to be rewarded for that effort, And if you can just show up authentically as yourself, the people you're meant to serve are going to find you. And so sometimes, like to your point, we overthink like, what's the social media strategy? What's the best? What's going to hack the algorithm? And it's like, how about you just be you? And sometimes you might get 5 views on a reel and another time you're going to get 5,000, It's really about how are you putting things out there to create more value in the world and to help more people. People are naturally going to be attracted to that.
Now, on the heels of that, I will ask, because you've got so much experience and you've got the following, are you noticing anything in particular these days that specifically is performing better for you, or are you just not looking at that whatsoever?
Yeah, I think for us, definitely carousels are working really well for us right now, as well as reels. Reels always perform better with non-followers because you can show up on their discover page. But for us, the carousels where we're doing a teaching moment or I'm walking people through my journey. So like I recently did a post about rewriting my story. I mean, I came from a small town in the Midwest in Kansas. Both of my parents suffered from alcoholism and addiction. I really am not supposed to be a doctor, let alone a millionaire, let alone this crazy entrepreneur. You know, my story wasn't written that way, but I really rewrote my whole story. And I kind of took my audience through that journey of what it looked like, the timeline of when we opened businesses, when we were in our offices working 12 hours a week, to why I started the coaching company and launched the podcast and that sort of thing, and how my life is so different now from then. And that post blew up because people want to see the journey, you know? And so I think if you can get really good at storytelling, and even if it's a teaching point, like I did a post the other day that was like, if I was going to open an office from the ground up, here's the 5 things that I would do if I had no social following and I had no brand recognition. And people love that. And so things like that, where you're teaching or you're sharing a part of your journey, people want to send that to their friends so their friends can get inspired, or they'll save it. And so that also helps your reach. And so we've been playing around a lot with those carousels.
Could you tell us a bit about how is your social system, your content system managed? Like, how are you involved? Who's actually creating the posts, that sort of thing?
Yeah. So this is something we really are trying to dial in because it's a lot of work, right? Like it is a ton of work to show up consistently on social media. And for me as the visionary, I'm just like, oh, this sounds good. Like I'm going to post this today. And it's really kind of been hard to create an SOP around it. It's been hard to be like, okay, this is what's going to happen on this day. And this is who's in charge of it. And so we're navigating that now, especially with bringing on our most recent marketing assistant. She's stepping into like a social media manager role. And so we use Notion as our in-house like project management database. And we've just built out a content calendar in there. So when I have a good idea for something I want to do on social, usually sometimes it's at midnight. I'm like, I'm not creating a reel right now at midnight. Like I'm in bed thinking, you know? So I'll go into Notion. I'll say, hey, here's an idea that I want to create. She'll put it together. She'll take some of the B-roll we have. She'll bring me caption ideas, and then I'll either approve it or tweak it, and then she'll put it on the social calendar. We're still not excellent at this. We try to post like 3 to 4 times a week. It's definitely not daily. It's definitely not multiple times a day because, again, I'm running these entities. I'm also a mom. I have a 3-year-old toddler, so I try not to be on my phone 24/7, and it is difficult, especially when you have an online company. But that's really how we've been able to delegate, but I still definitely have my hand in it.
Okay. Yeah, I hear what you're saying there. It's like you have all these ideas. How do I get them out? Of course, having that trustworthy team is nice. So that's, I think, lighting a fire under a lot of people by just hearing that and wanting that kind of life where you can say, here's my idea, and have a trustworthy team of people that just take it and run with it. As we get towards the end, I am curious because, you know, people will hear an interview like this and think you've got it all figured out. Everything is perfect, you know, but that's not the case. No one's business is perfect. We're always evolving and learning. So what would you say is one either big priority or a challenge even that you're thinking about or working on right now in your life or business?
Good question. I'm going to be super honest. My life today is more than I could have ever imagined as like the 10-year-old version of myself, right? Like I had no idea it was going to be this big, this beautiful, this expansive, this abundant. And right now, the next challenge I'm working through is like, I feel like I've reached my peak. Like, oh, this is as good as it gets, you know, but I know that that's not true. I know that more is always coming. I know that I have a big vision on my heart. I'm meant to lead a big impact in the world. And so I'm just working through like, hey, this is really good and this is amazing and you can be really, really grateful for it. But it doesn't mean you have to stop here. It means you can keep going. There's more out there. There's a reason I'm feeling called to do more and be more and have more. And so just really trying to lean into following that. To your point, I definitely don't have it all figured out. Transparently, we're hiring for more help at home. So we have a nanny, we have a house cleaner and things like that, because managing all these businesses doesn't leave a lot of time for that sort of thing. And also when I do have time for that, I'd much rather be spending it with my son instead of, you know, vacuuming. Like I don't want to vacuum. I want to spend time on the floor and somebody else can vacuum. And so we're really looking at even getting more help at home. So the times that feel chaotic throughout the day for us is really meal prepping, making sure everybody's eating healthy. Because we're on the go, it's easy to eat out a lot. And so it's like, okay, how can we get someone in here to meal prep for us so that we're supported in that, because we don't want to sacrifice our health in the name of building these businesses either. And so really the biggest thing is just like navigating all the different pockets of my life so that I can still show up authentically, healthy, and the best version of myself as possible.
Sounds great. This has been so helpful, very inspiring to people who want the same thing. So thanks so much, Stephanie. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Join us again next time on Profits Through Podcasting for more insights on how to turn your health-focused podcast into a lead and revenue generation machine for your business. Are you ready to let a team of professionals handle your entire podcast production workflow? East Coast Studio can help you elevate your podcast to the higher quality standards required for credibility in the health and wellness space. Plus, give you the guidance and support needed to podcast consistently, growing your impact and your sales. Visit eastcoaststudio.com to learn more.